And this is our Winter Solstice channeling and astrology talk on December 21st, 2024. And we're kind of gathered here on this longest night of the year, darkest night of the year, in stillness to be with our breath, to be with spirit, to be with each other, in silence and stillness for a few minutes. We'll have a meditation at one point, just maybe 5 minutes of stillness. Although it is kind of helpful over a 3-day period, so yesterday, today, and tomorrow, to have as much quiet time as you can. A lot of people will go into a meditation or go into the womb energy, to just really pick up information from spiritual, from the highest source, that will be beneficial for you in the upcoming 3 months, and as we come into a new year and we come into a new frequency. So really important and really helpful to kind of go there. All right, so taking some slow deep breaths, we'll begin. Maybe if you have a candle, you can light that. I have my electronic candles, and I actually found a few flames. And breathing in and breathing out. Noticing your breath and focusing on your body as you breathe. So focus on the breath and notice what you notice in the body, letting the shoulders relax. Releasing the weights from your shoulders, focusing on the breath, breathing in, pausing, breathing out, breathing in, pausing, breathing out. Focus on your breath and surround your body in the container of light below the feet, above the head, in front of the body, behind the body. Focus on below the body, that container of light, and the breath. So with your imagination, visualize yourself in a bubble or a container filled with light, and maybe it's floating and drifting through the darkness, but you're centered. You're that light in the darkness. You're at peace with yourself. You're breathing in. Relax your belly and the muscles of your belly. You're breathing out. So it's keeping the spine nice and straight and everything uncrossed for the moment, but not straining to do it. See if you can do it in a really relaxed way. Breathing in and breathing out. Divine Mother, Divine Father, Ascended Masters, Archangels, Guides, Guardians, I come on behalf of this circle and all the individuals in the circle. I come on behalf of all who are listening to a recording later. May divine order and perfect harmony come to Sonja, to Charlene, to Coral, to Susan, to Deborah, to Ruth, to Stephen, to Peggy, to Gloria, to Andre, to Laura. Breathing in and out, divine order and perfect harmony coming to all of our bodies, and a deep, deep connection to the new, healed, whole Mother Earth. And in your bubble, in the warmth of that light, feel yourself floating, letting go of burdens, releasing, and together we'll focus on the prayer to Kuan Yin today, focusing on the Divine Mother, Kuan Yin, however you see the Divine Feminine, and just imagine that your container of light is being circled in the arms of the Divine Feminine. Your bubble is against the heart chakra, and you're breathing in and breathing out into your heart the loving, healing energy from the Divine Feminine, from the Lady Kuan Yin, from the Divine Mother, Mother Mary, however you see her. Dearest Lady Kuan Yin, I call on you to help me love and accept myself fully. I ask that you grant me a full measure of compassion for myself and for others. I pray that those suffering in the world can see and feel your loving presence. I pray that hardened hearts will melt in the presence of the divine waters of compassion that you pour over the earth, nourishing seeds in all hearts and creating gardens of beauty within all living beings. It is my intention. It is my intention to nourish this garden within my heart through prayer, meditation, right thinking, mantras, mindfulness, just adding whatever is your intention. It's my intention to nourish this heart through prayer, meditation, and right thinking. In my heart, my garden flourishes, filling up and spilling over with the fragrance of the garden. Thank you, dear Lady Kuan Yin, for your presence in my world and in the world. And breathing in and out. In the last several full moons, the Kuan Yin energy has mentioned that we're at the end of the 10-year invocation practice that we've all done together. Every year in the new year, a new invocation would come through. And this year's invocation was full presence in the moment, for that is the place where we create from. We don't project our worries, our fears. We don't predict what the future's going to look like. We stay in the moment, being open in our hearts, being balanced, connected to the new healed home Mother Earth, open to the spiritual light and the higher selves. We stay connected, and in that connection, we observe with open hearts, with joy. If we can start to build that joy in our hearts, we observe. And that is what we bring into the future. We bring the light into the future. We bring our peace into the future. We create from the moment. And alchemical change, transmutation happens when we're present in the moment. And so we have to learn to be and to be still. The equinox, the solstice, the equinox brings us into balance. The solstice asks us to pay attention, and especially the winter solstice asks us to go inward and be still. And we happen to live in a world, and these are the dates around the time where we're rushing around doing holiday things and wrapping presents and running to the store, when it's really in alignment with the earth to go inward, to be quiet, to have finished up all those things at the harvest, and to use the winter time, the midwinter time, to be still, to rest, to replenish, so that when spring comes, we can be energized, renewed, and ready to start the planting again, to start building things for this during the spring and the summer. And so even though in the outer world in the winter things look dead, they're not dead. They're simply underground, getting ready, drawing nourishment from the soil. And this is what we need to learn: breathing in, breathing out. So bringing that stillness and the awareness. We have just, 10 days or so to finish up our invocation for 2024. And even though you may not be repeating it 3 times daily, it is something to bring forward and to help us maintain our stillness and meditation, our awareness and our awakened self as we move into this new age. Breathing in and out. Breathing in, I am present. Breathing out, I release the past. Breathing in, I am present. Breathing out, I let go of worrying about the future. I am aware I'm awake. I'm fully present in this moment, practicing mindful awareness. Breathing in, I am fully present. Breathing out, I am fully present. Second round. Breathing in, I am present. Breathing out, I let go of the past, the morning, the day, the centuries, the year. Breathing in, I am present. Breathing out, I release worrying about the future. I am aware, I am awake, I am fully present in this moment, practicing mindful awareness. Breathing in, I am present. Breathing out, I release the past. Breathing in, I am fully present. Breathing out, I am fully present. So holding this moment, breathing into the heart chakra. Imagine a light in the heart, connecting to the light in the heart of the Divine Mother. And that light is like a green flame. Breathing in and out, visualizing a green flame in your heart, magnetizing and flowing towards and receiving a green flame from the heart of the Divine Mother. Breathing in and breathing out. The sound that we make for the heart chakra exercise is ah. So just breathing in and out, and let your body sigh with sound. Ah. Some of you may need that sigh to release stress out of the body. Ah. Some of you may need that sigh to open up the heart a little bit more and dropping the tension from the jaw and the shoulders. Ah. The one syllable Sanskrit mantra is yum. Ah, yum. Ah, yum. Ah, yum. And continuing to breathe, opening up to the mantra that we'll chant together 15 times or so. Ah, yum, om mani padme hum, 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 om mani padme hum. And using that chant to fan the flame in your heart. Om mani padme hum, om mani padme hum, om mani padme hum, om mani padme hum, om mani padme hum. It's a very powerful message that I've been receiving for the last probably 2 months, and through the last full moons and the channelings and the dream time last night. Our solstice was exact, our solstice chart, and our solstice was at the exact point at about 1:20 a.m. Pacific, so about 4:20 a.m. Eastern. Most of us were probably sleeping, and the dream time was just intense and should be again this evening. The veils are thinner, great time to meditate, to pay attention to your dreams, and obviously also to keep breathing breathing in and breathing out. Opening the heart chakra and being prepared. So the very last dream, I had a few dreams last night, and the very last dream that I had, when I woke up, I was in that in-between stage of awakening and sort of a lucidity in the dreams, and there was all these faces looking at me like kind of spiritual beings and star beings, and the kind of glowing hearts and eyes, and I was like, okay, what's the word? What's the message? And the message that they said was to bring the divine feminine energy to all hearts. And so I thought that was interesting, based on the fact that Kuan Yin had said instead of having an invocation this year, you've had 10 years since 2014 when we started our first pattern of these invocations for each year. You've had 10 years to build on them, and now it's time for the Divine Feminine, and this year to really focus on it. And I've noticed from all my astrologer friends that this too is showing up in the asteroids, in the charts, in the sky. And so we are very fortunate tonight, I'm going to unmute her, to have Sonja Elison with us, I Heart Astrology from Colorado. She's going to speak to us about the chart that she's drawn up for this winter solstice. Are you there, Sonja?
I am.
Oh, good.
Something went right. Yeah, so did you want me to just go ahead and launch in?
Yeah, I have looked at it and listened to some of it myself. I don't have the expertise of the aspects that are important, but certain things struck me, and some of them were the softer aspect of one of the trines. Also, there's a bunch of squares that Sonja will tell you about, and I guess the most important thing that we both struck on was that truth is very, very, very needed, very powerful in this chart. The need to have truth, to have transparency, and to have discernment. So I'll let you go from there, Sonja.
Okay. Yeah, so this is another one of those really interesting quote-unquote charts because there is so much energy in it. And when we see this kind of energy in what are called mutable signs, that Virgo, Gemini, Pisces, and Sagittarius, what it tells us is that there is a lot of energy for change. There is an opening to being able to move with the flow of energy. And so this is a big change from the past years where we've often had a lot of cardinal energy, which is more like volcanic eruptions, things happening quickly and surprisingly and having to react. But this one is softer energy in some respects, and energy that is more flowing. That said, there is a lot of work in this chart. One of the things that really struck me, and as Melissa said, very much about truth. Jupiter is at the top of the chart for the U.S., meaning that we really need to work towards finding a new truth, a new justice, a new way of understanding. And Jupiter is in square to Saturn, which is the way things used to be, reality. When Saturn comes into our lives, I'm sure all of you have felt it. It can feel like you're bumping your head against a brick wall, because there's this sense of wanting to stay in one's habits, but also when you get the energy up to go forward, you feel like something's stopping you. And that something is usually Saturn. And from an astrological point of view, what that is meaning is you're not quite ready to go ahead. And so stop, be patient, wait, and keep thinking about what you need to learn in this situation, because Saturn brings lessons. So Saturn is very prominent very, very prominent in this chart. And it is, like I said, square to Jupiter. So there's this sense of holding on to the past and being in conflict with the future. The last time that we had a really, really evident Saturn-Jupiter square was in the 60s, and you remember all of the conservative versus liberal and all of the fighting and needing to understand each other that we went through at that time. I imagine some people kind of started to understand the other side and some didn't, but that's what we're called upon to do now. Saturn is also opposite the moon. So Saturn is the teacher. It's about difficulties that we face in our lives, but it's also about learning through those difficulties. And when it's opposite the moon, it may feel emotionally very difficult or draining. But what it's trying to teach us is to obtain a more mature outlook.
Well, the moon, I'm just gonna jump in. So the moon is in Virgo and Saturn is in Pisces.
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to let people know that, so they can maybe apply it to some of their feelings. It's funny, I was doing a channeling earlier for someone in Pisces, and we had to ask something about the year for her, and Spirit said it was going to be like water. Like first I saw like a dam overflowing, and it was going to be very fluid. So that's interesting that you mentioned about the mutability and fluidity. But then it was like it was saying to her, you could feel it emotionally, so you're going to have to ride the emotions. And then, probably a good part of the reading, we had a lot of crying, which, she was saying, this is really great, it's like helping me clear things and flow. So just thought I would share like how it might come out for you, individually. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's really helpful, and I could spend probably an hour at least just talking about this one aspect because it's so important right now, and it's such a learning experience. Virgo, the moon in Virgo. And I think this is really important to talk about. The moon in Virgo can be very self-critical, very, very worried.
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah. With Saturn in aspect to it, it's almost, you can picture it like a grandmother or a grandfather kind of holding a crying child and teaching that child, it's not your fault. This is something to learn from. Once you calm down, and Saturn moon is very much about calming down, about taking a more adult, but also a more separated viewpoint. Like you always say,
it's not the form, it's how you meet it. That?
Go ahead. Yeah.
I said it's not, like you always say, it's not the form, it's how you meet it.
Yeah, and remove yourself from the emotional tenseness or the emotional tension of a situation, and try and observe it as if you're from Mars or something, maybe Venus, and look at it as, what do I learn from this emotion that's coming up? Like you say, am I really that emotion? Or is it just trying to tell me about how I need to face and deal with this situation? So the fluidity in the quality of the signs is helping us to let go of some of this repetitive, habitual, emotional reaction.
Nice.
It's kind of the intuitive reaction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, balance is so key right now too, and a lot in the individual readings that I've noticed in the past week just alone, a lot comes up about being able to like you said, observe and balance the emotions with the logic. Not take the logic to beat yourself up and only be like one guy was telling me I should be this way, I should be that way. He was reading all these books about, how to respond and react, and he was bludgeoning himself with the information. And at some point the channeling came in and said something to the effect of, this is not positive for you. And he was kind of stunned, like, oh, these books are such great teachers. Because I said, your emotional self is just feeling beat up by them. You have to start listening to your little boy, and it hit on the age, just popped up. I was like, wow, you have to look at this age. And when he looked at the age, there was just this horrible stuff going on in his family, and kind of a bludgeoning of him, and you're no good, and you're never going to amount to anything, and all that kind of stuff. And so that emotional self, without having an outlet in a balanced way, like your image of the grandparent supporting you and saying, this is the emotion, but let's step back and look at it, it's not your fault, and yeah, so he's needing to do that with his logic and not use his logic to say, why am I feeling this, what's wrong with me? That's not working. So the balance has to happen, and that's the compassion that Kuan Yin is saying for myself and for others. And I always thought it was super interesting when I say this prayer that it starts out with, dearest Lady Kuan Yin, I call on you to help me love and accept myself fully. So it's like gotta start with an acceptance. All right, onward.
Yeah, that's really good. One of the other things that is in this chart, which I haven't heard anyone actually mention, is that Neptune is at 27 degrees of Pisces, and that is the degree of highest dignity of Neptune. So it takes 270 years or so for Neptune to go around. So it's been that long since Neptune has been there. And the thing about that degree is that is the degree of agape, of compassionate, unconditional love. And so it is, the chart is also telling us, and it's kind of interesting, also, Neptune is in trine to Mars, and Mars is in Leo, and Mars is going back and forth in Leo and Cancer. Like I said, I could talk for hours about this chart. But anyway, what Neptune is trying to do, I think, is to soften our will and our need to feel like we always have to be right, that if we get our way, that there's something wrong with us. And so it's a really interesting time for not just our emotions, but also our will and how they connect, and the forgiveness of the self. As you said, we have to be able to love ourselves in order to love others. And with Mars right now in Leo, it's in retrograde, which is saying rethink the way you've always thought about what you want for yourself, your ego, your need to control groups, your need to lead others, your need to be someone. Rethink that. And Mars is going back into Cancer, which is, again, lo and behold, about the emotions, the emotional foundation. And so I think it's a real clear message here about feeling like we have to be somebody. We have to measure up to some standard in order to feel valued in ourselves.
That's really powerful.
Mars going back into
Yeah, I mean that
Cancer is saying you are valuable.
It's interesting to hear it in Leo, because I think there is a lot of sort of abrupt needing to change for people, like, things coming up in their lives where they don't even realize that they've been controlling themselves or others. I mean, I think it can be in family, trying to get your kids to go a certain way. I think it can be with friends, trying to get your friends to be a certain way. I think it can be in work, and that's, I think, a very powerful thing to look at right now, that there's sort of like the brakes are being put on by the solstice, by the energy out there, to sort of stop and evaluate why we're suffering. Where's our own personal suffering coming from, and in what ways can we change the way we're expecting things in others to be, because a lot of our suffering comes from our expectations of how other people should behave or what should be happening in the world, not only with ourselves but outside of ourselves.
Amen. Yeah, that's the truth. Yeah, so the need to be heard, the need to be listened to, the need to be respected, the need to be envied, maybe, is part of Mars and Leo. But as it moves backward in retrograde into Cancer, it's very much asking us to look at that. Why do we need to feel? Why are we looking for that confirmation from others? The confirmation, and Mars is opposite Pluto, and Pluto's in Aquarius, is the confirmation needs to come from within, from ourselves. And so here we circle back. And all of these planets are connected, so it makes sense to circle back, because they're all helping each other to tell the story. So it circles back to truth, and it circles back to justice and to understanding. So Mars opposite Pluto can be really, really rough. It can be very violent. But when you look at all of the connections, and we're seeing the violence in the world, but when you look at all the connections here, it's saying, okay, you don't need to get affirmation from outside. What you need to do is look inside and evaluate your own character. Are you doing what feels right to you? What feels right for you to be doing in your community? So there's a lot of talk about Aquarius and being yourself, but I think the deeper message is kind of, are you dyeing your hair orange because it's bothering someone in your family?
That's a good question.
and you want to poke them, or are you dyeing your hair orange because it makes you happy and it makes you more able to share joy among your friends and your family and your community. So that's the difference.
Yeah, that is. Someone asked me today, because truth came up in her reading, or yesterday, I don't remember, and she said something about, well, if my truth is I don't want to do something like I have to file all these papers for, a lawyer or something, and the taxes and blah blah blah, and then she said, I notice a lot of times, like, I do things with my partner that I don't really want to do, but I want to be with my partner and I want to keep them there. And that sounds like the Leo part to me that you just mentioned, the kind of Mars and Leo, where the other sounds like that's just personality stuff. And so what Spirit had said is, yeah, there are probably things in the world that you don't like or don't want to do. That is a truth. But the higher truth is asking, how does this serve my highest good? How does it serve my highest good to do this? And if you're asking, how does it serve the highest good of all, my highest good, if you're asking that question, then you're really going to honestly take a look at wanting to dye your hair orange to get back at your mother, or to thumb your nose at society, or no, that's just me, that's just joy. Because when we're doing something from the joy and the happiness, it has a very different vibration and frequency that it connects to and sends out to others. So again, it's not one of those mental argument things. It's that sort of heart knowing, like you're saying, that you have to behave from.
Right.
So how about the trine? I mean, is there more squares besides the 2 squares we mentioned?
Oh my God, there's so much. Well, Neptune is trine to Mars, which is a very, very interesting part of the chart too, because Neptune and Mars are kind of different. But yeah, there's also a trine between Jupiter and Venus, and Venus, of course, is conjunct Chariklo. So, of course, I shouldn't say of course, because most astrologers don't even chart. That's hard to say, Chariklo. But it is. Venus trine Jupiter is another message, I think, of saying, look at others, look at your society, look at truth from the heart and with love. And again, Neptune is at this very, very, the only degree in which it is at its highest dignity of agape. So, here we are, 1 month and 300 years almost, and we get to live with this, and we get to see the highest level of agape operating in society, which is really very cool. So it's actually going to be there for more than a month. But in this chart, of course, it's such an important, so energized chart that and the idea of loving others is so important in this chart that I think it just kind of shouts out, hey, look at everyone in your life. Be grateful for those in your life. Even those people who are annoying you, what are they telling you about? Why are you being annoyed? Why is your emotional reaction to be annoyed instead of to be amused or to be happy or to learn from what you're feeling?
Yeah.
So, yeah, again, it's a very, I think I'd call it in a way introspective, but in a way also very connected energy of trying to understand others and trying to see the world with compassion, and with compassion from the eyes of others. Does that make sense?
Sure. And in Buddhism, they always say, to look at it not creating more separation, making something good or bad, or right or wrong, or this is the way they should be, or people with orange hair are weird, not looking at it from a judgmental place, but looking at it with curiosity. And I think one of the biggest steps that I see all of this astrology leading us towards is this more Aquarian age, this more, justice and awareness of everybody else's needs, not just our own. And when we start looking at it from that perspective, we get away from that sort of selfishness that gets so grasping and so wanting to control the world to make us comfortable or to make us happy, or, as you said earlier, to give us a perspective, of ourselves, to give us a role. Oh, I'm a good mother, oh, I'm a good father, oh, I'm a really great finance person, or I'm a really good massage therapist, or, I'm a human being, and we're all human beings, and understanding ourselves from that perspective, His Holiness always says, that's what, brings us together. That's what we all have in common. We're all human here, and as human beings, we deserve that compassion, that dignity, and that acceptance, not of behaviors that are off, but of others as being human and having a perspective, a viewpoint, and like you said, trying to understand it. I think that what really caught me is, say her name again.
Chari Klo.
Chari Klo. So Chari Klo really struck me when I saw this part in her involvement in this trine between Venus and Jupiter. Jupiter making things big, and Venus being from the heart. It's this opportunity to really spread that love into the world and connect with that divine frequency of harmony that we're connecting to. And Chari Klo, she was the wife of, she was a muse, and she was the wife of the guy, sorry, say it again. Chiron, right. So Chiron is where we all have our wound, in our charts when we look at that. Kind of interesting. And, you can talk to an astrologer if you don't know much about that, and you find out probably a lot about yourself, where you carry on and feel hurt and so on and so forth. But I think the thing that's really interesting about her is that, first of all, she was married to, he was a centaur, so he was kind of Sagittarian energy, and she is the healer. She's the one that supported that male aspect, which always kind of brings me back to the feminine energy was supporting the healer who couldn't heal themselves. And now we're to this time where we're really here to heal ourselves, to go from the inside, not the outside. And it tied in with Kuan Yin coming in for the year to me. It tied in with the divine feminine energies here and that healing aspect. And just was really exciting. And then I found out that her name actually, it means graceful spinning. So there's part of the word of her name in Greek that's grace. And again, that divine grace coming in that's available for all of us. We don't have to beat ourselves up. We can just open our hearts to the healing flow of energy that's there. You're talking about the agape and the highest degree of Piscean energy being available to flow in this time, and so it's really kind of exciting, because Spirit has been saying too that we have choice all along. We have a choice to step into this frequency of divine energy, in divine healing and divine wholeness, or we have a choice to sit in the old stuff and, flail about in our suffering. And I guess the shadow of Pisces can be delusional and victim, yeah, for sure. So, the choice is to break out of that stuff, and the energy is there to help us do it. So I think that's the message that I'm hearing coming through astrology, that I'm hearing coming through spirit, that I'm noticing when I'm fortunate enough to do individual readings coming in through individuals. I think that's really, it's kind of awesome right now. And collectively coming together. So we have our chakra attunements, and in this morning's I talked a lot about Characlo. It sounds like charcoal glow. Characlo. I talked a lot about her because that's one of the aspects that struck me here, and I'm really grateful for listening to all the aspects that you spoke to tonight. Sonja really gave me, I'd forgotten that Mars was in Leo, and I'd forgotten that what Mars in Leo can be like. So those were some really good points, and really appreciated it all. Yeah. I did want to ask you though, something I was listening to, one of the astrologers was talking about January of 2020, one of these squares was repeating. Do you know which one that was, or looking back?
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is the Mars-Pluto opposition.
Yeah, I think so.
That repeats in, I think it's the 3rd or the 4th.
Yeah, the 3rd. It'll repeat January 3rd, but I guess and then again in June. But I guess and then at our election, our American election, our presidential election, it was also that day.
Yes, it was.
And then I guess the first one was January 2020. So any points you want to talk about that, since we're still going to be dealing with that, particularly coming up on the 3rd of January?
Yeah, wow. That's kind of a Pandora's box you just opened. So what, the repetition of the Mars-Pluto aspect on the 3rd of January is, again, it can be very violent. It can be very explosive. But again, the way that it is pictured in the chart, and what the chart is trying to tell us is, think about how you habitually respond, especially emotionally, and think about why you are responding in that way, in such a habitual manner. Because that will bring you the understanding to change a way of acting which isn't constructive. The reason that you repeat that behavior over and over and over again, and I will include me in that universal you, is because we haven't realized that we're not growing, we're not fixing what we're trying to fix by using that habitual response. Exactly. So the retrograde Mars is an opportunity to say, okay, how can we change our response in order to move forward instead of just doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result?
Yep.
Think about, okay, we are funny creatures, aren't we?
Yes.
When you think about the fact that first appeared on Election Day, for us in the U.S. at least, we can certainly think, okay, the last time I talked with someone who was on the other side of the political divide, did I yell at them? Did I just shut up and leave? Or did I listen to their perspective? And maybe one of those things needs to change.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that that kind of comes to mind.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And I've seen so much rude behavior on both sides of that. You know, just because someone thinks one way or is like horrified the other. So that, I think, is the other thing that we have to really pay attention to, is not creating divides. Looking at how your emotional responses, like you're saying, or reactions in the past have created divides, and how can you change that to bring wholeness. So that's a great way to probably end this talk. I mean, I think if you have a few minutes, I could open up because we're not a huge circle, so I could open up the mute if anyone wanted to, was confused about a point and wanted to ask about it. And then I would like to go back to a little bit of breathing and channeling, and maybe just a 5-minute silent meditation, because collectively, I think getting together and meditating just silently for 5 minutes, and maybe even thinking over some of these things that Sonja just brought to our attention, is really helpful for the planet and the collective's energy to move into that higher vibratory state and out of the fear-based state. So let me see if I can figure out how to unmute for a moment. Yes, here we go.
All participants are unmuted.
And the best thing to do is just go ahead and say your name, and then we'll go ahead with the question. Anyone have a question? Comment? Thought?
Can I say something real quick?
Sure.
It's Sonja again. You probably recognized my voice. One of the things that I think it's important to remember during this time, where we do have some really serious challenges, a lot of us are clearing karma for ancestral, national, familial, is going through hard times is not punishment.
Wait, I'll just mute again so that it's not echoing.
Okay.
All participants are muted, and they can unmute themselves.
Okay, go ahead.
So going through these hard times is not punishment from the universe. It's not, and it's not God saying, I don't care about you, and so I'm going to let you suffer. It's an opportunity to grow, and an opportunity to learn, and an opportunity to understand other people's perspectives and other people's feelings and other people's experiences.
Yep, and so
that,
go ahead.
So when you meet someone who maybe acts childishly or acts rudely, you can face them with compassion because you understand what their motivation is, why they're acting that way.
Well, one of the 8 worldly dharmas in Buddhism that we've been speaking of in our manifestation series that we just completed was, pain is not punishment, pleasure is not reward. So again, that brings you to the place of just looking at things with curiosity without judging. And you're saying the same thing about people. And you're also saying, you're helping us look at that aspect of us that can go into that sort of shadow of the Piscean victim thing of, I'm being punished in some way, I'm being vilified in some way, I'm being thwarted in some way, and then taking that personally, thinking it's a punishment, and it's not. It's just the same way that getting, a gold medal or Olympian champion whatever, is not is not pleasure ultimately. Like if you can start to look at things from that middle way, you can just be a lot happier and a lot more balanced as you're moving through this stuff. I think the other thing is that Kuan Yin said something in the November full moon or the December, I don't remember, but she said that a lot of what's going on in the earth changes, are things that are having to happen, to bring the healing forth. They're like healing issues. But she said it's also a reminder to you that you can instantly change something for the better. So when you think of a flood coming in, and one day we had what are those things? A twister in Santa Cruz in California a few days ago, and it picked up like 8 cars, it injured 6 people. I mean, it just roared through an area and just tore everything up. And of course we saw that in the South, we saw that in North Carolina, and it just changed the lives of people overnight, and it changed the landscape overnight. But she said it also can change that rapidly positively. And I realized that there's a way that we have as humans, that we tend to focus on the worst, that we tend to, somebody used the term predicting, in our minds, like when we hear some of the things, oh my God, there's going to be on the 3rd, there's going to be violence, rather than being aware that the energy is there, and it's an opportunity, like Sonja is saying, to manage ourselves, to manage our emotions, and to lift ourselves into that higher frequency. So I do believe that we are learning from that, and we have the capacity to learn and to shift even in an instant. And that's part of planning to be fully present in the moment. So does that resonate with you, Sonja, too?
Yeah, and that was an amazing way to tie back to the very beginning.
Yeah, here we go. So
Open up.
I'm going to open us up again just real quick.
All participants are unmuted.
All right. Anybody have a question, a thought, something you want to share, to say hello? All right. Then it seems
Everybody's shy tonight.
Yeah. Then it seems like a really great time to go into that silent meditation. I'll give you another few minutes or few seconds. You all good? I was also wondering, I wonder how many of us are mutable. I see 1, 2, I see 2 Pisces here, mutable. I see a Gemini, mutable. I see a Sagittarius, mutable. I see a Virgo, mutable. How many of us are mutable signs?
Lots of mutable.
Yeah. So mutable is Sagittarius, Virgo, Gemini, Pisces. Yeah.
And Sagittarius, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. You all good? All right. Ready to meditate? I'm going to close this again then. Here we go.
All participants are muted, and they can unmute themselves.
So taking a deep breath, bringing your palm of your dominant hand to the heart chakra, breathing in and out. Visualize that green energy coming from the Divine Mother's heart into yours. And breathe it in deeply, pausing and then releasing with an ah through the mouth. So breathing in through the nose. Ah. 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 And going ahead and relaxing your shoulders, checking your bubble of light, and feel yourself just floating in the bubble of light, We're going to tone Om 3 times, then we'll go into a brief meditation for 5 minutes of silence. Feel the stillness of the solstice. Breathing in, rubbing the heart. Now you can bring your hands to prayer pose if you prefer, Anjali Mudra in front of the heart, or you can continue to rub the heart if your heart needs some healing. Go counterclockwise. If you're feeling radiating and you want to spill it out into the world, go clockwise. Breathing in, toning 3 Oms. Ready? And focusing on the flame in your heart, breathing in and breathing out, drop into the silence. Visualizing that flame of light, calling in Kuan Yin and the Divine Feminine, and Jura Kolo, to bring in that grace and to spin it, to flow it through our hearts and our lives and bring it into our world. If you have water, you can hold it to your heart, your water vessel. Remember, you can always change the vibration of your water yourself. It's nice to do it on the full moon and on these groups when we're together. So holding it to the heart, breathing in and out, imagining that water shifting to those waters of compassion that Kuan Yin pours over the earth, and feeding the garden of your heart by breathing in and out with the water vessel, container, glass, cup, whatever, held in your palms to your heart. We'll tone 3 times to close the circle tonight. Ready? And we invite in the Divine Mother energy to bring blessings to ourselves, our hearts, each other, to this water that we hold, and to bring blessings to the world. Happy solstice!